I've always enjoyed driving at night, the quiet roads, and the sense of solitude. But one experience on a desolate stretch in the Florida Panhandle changed that forever. It was late November, and I was driving back from a friend's wedding in Tallahassee. I decided to take a scenic route through the Panhandle, a decision that I would soon regret. The GPS directed me onto an old highway that snaked through dense forests and forgotten towns. The night was moonless, the darkness almost tangible, broken only by my headlights. The road was eerily deserted, and a thick fog began to roll in, enveloping my car in a ghostly shroud. I slowed down, the visibility worsening with each passing mile. As I drove, a sense of unease crept over me. The road seemed endless, the trees like silent sentinels, watching my every move. I hadn't seen another car for miles, and my phone had just lost signal, leaving me completely isolated. Suddenly, my headlights caught something up ahead. It was a car, an old sedan, parked haphazardly on the side of the road. Its hazard lights were blinking weakly, piercing through the fog. I slowed down as I approached, debating whether to stop. My gut told me to keep driving, but then I saw a figure standing by the car, seemingly in distress. Reluctantly, I pulled over and rolled down my window. "Everything okay?" I called out. The figure, a man in his 40s, approached. "My car broke down and I can't get any signal out of here," he said, his voice tinged with desperation. I hesitated, but my conscience wouldn't let me leave him stranded. "I can give you a lift to the nearest town," I offered. He thanked me profusely and got into the passenger seat. As we drove, he introduced himself as Mark and explained that he was heading home from a business trip. The conversation was strained, his answers short, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The fog seemed to thicken around us, the road now barely visible. Then, without warning, Mark lunged at me, his hands reaching for the steering wheel. "Stop the car!" he yelled, his eyes wild. I fought to keep control, my heart pounding in my chest. "What are you doing?" I shouted, trying to push him off. He grappled with me, trying to force the car to a stop. In my struggle, my foot slipped off the gas and then the car began to slow. I knew I had to act fast, so with a surge of adrenaline, I managed to push him back and hit the gas, the car lurching forward. Mark was caught off guard, and I took the opportunity to shove him out of the car, his body tumbling onto the road. I didn't stop to look back. I drove as fast as I could, the fog a blur around me. My mind raced with questions. Who was Mark really, and what did he want? After what felt like an eternity, I reached a small town and pulled into a gas station. I called the police, my hands shaking as I recounted the events. The officers listened intently, their expressions grave and concerned. They told me that there had been reports of a man, matching Mark's description, involved in several carjackings in the area. I was in shock. I had narrowly escaped a potentially dangerous situation, all because of a chance encounter on a forgotten road. The police escorted me back to the highway, ensuring that I was safe to continue my journey. As I drove away, the sun was beginning to rise, casting a soft light over the Panhandle. That night changed my perspective on solitary drives. I realized how quickly things can turn dangerous, how a simple act of kindness can put you in harm's way. I still drive at night, but I'm more cautious now, more aware of the risks, and whenever I pass through the Panhandle, I avoid that old highway, a road that holds memories that I'd rather forget. I've always found London streets quite captivating at night, with their historic charm and eerie quietness. But one late November night, my fascination turned to fear, and I encountered something that still haunts me. I was a taxi driver, and that night I was working the late shift. The city was shrouded in a thick fog, typical for London this time of year, but it gave the streets an otherworldly feel. The usual bustle of the city was absent, replaced by unsettling silence. Around 2 a.m., I was driving through the narrow, cobbled streets near the Tower of London, an area known for its chilling history. The fog was so dense that my headlights could barely cut through it. I was about to call it a night when I saw a figure standing by the roadside, waving for a taxi. He was a tall man, wearing a long, dark coat and a wide-brimmed hat that obscured his face. Something about him made me feel uneasy, but I couldn't leave someone out in the cold London fog. I stopped, and he got in the back seat. "Where to?" I asked, trying to sound cheerful. "Follow the river, please," he said in a low, gravelly voice. His tone was emotionless, almost robotic. I found his request quite odd, but obliged, driving along the Thames. I tried to make small talk, but he didn't respond. I glanced in the rearview mirror, but his hat shadowed his face, making it impossible to see his features. As we drove, I felt a growing sense of dread. The streets were deserted, and the only sound was the car's engine and the faint lapping of the river against the banks. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. I decided to break the silence. "Is there a specific place along the river you're heading to?" I asked. He finally spoke, his voice sending shivers down my spine. "Just keep driving. I'll tell you when to stop." His tone was commanding, leaving no room for argument. I obeyed, but my mind raced with questions. Who was this man? What did he want? We continued in silence, the fog growing thicker, enveloping the car like a ghostly cocoon. I could now barely see a few feet ahead, and a sense of panic began to set in. Then, without warning, he told me to stop. We were in front of an old, decrepit warehouse by the river, a place I knew was abandoned. "This is it," he said, his voice cold. I stopped the car, my heart pounding. "This place looks deserted. Are you sure this is where you want to be?" He didn't answer. Instead, he handed me a wad of cash, more than enough to cover the fare, and got out of the taxi. I watched him walk towards the warehouse and then disappearing into the fog. Relieved that he was gone, I quickly turned the car around and sped away. But curiosity got the better of me, and I had to know why he went to such a desolate place. I parked a short distance away and followed him on foot, keeping to the shadows. The warehouse was eerie, its windows broken, the walls covered in graffiti. I could see the man standing by the river, staring into the water. Panicked, I called the police and told them what happened. They arrived quickly, searching the area and the river, but they found nothing. No trace of the man, no evidence that anyone had been there. The police were skeptical of my story, but I knew what I saw. I couldn't explain it, but I was sure that the man had vanished into the river. I couldn't shake off the experience. It haunted me for weeks. I did some research and learned that the warehouse was the site of a tragic accident years ago, where a man had drowned into the Thames. I still drive a taxi in London, but avoid that area at night. The memory of the phantom passenger and his mysterious disappearance by the river lingers in my mind, a chilling reminder of the city's hidden secrets and unexplained mysteries. I've always been a skeptic, especially when it comes to local legends. That's why, when I found myself driving down Burnt Mill Road in New Jersey late one night, the story of the Atco ghost was the last thing on my mind. I was returning from a friend's house, the clock nearing midnight. The road was notorious for its chilling tale of a young boy supposedly hit by a drunk driver while chasing a ball, now haunting the stretch as a ghost. I never believed it, chalking it up to urban legend. The night was unusually quiet, the only sound being the hum of my car's engine. A dense fog had begun to settle, typical for a fall evening in the area, reducing visibility to a mere few feet. I slowed down, cautious of the winding road ahead. As I navigated a particularly sharp bend, my headlights briefly illuminated a faded, old-fashioned ball lying at the roadside. It struck me as odd, but I didn't think much of it. However, as I drove on, a feeling of unease began to grow within me. Suddenly, my car's radio, which had been playing softly, crackled to life with an eerie intensity. Static filled the car, and amidst the white noise, I thought I heard the faint sound of a child's laughter. It was fleeting, and as quickly as it came, it was gone, swallowed by the static. I shook my head, trying to dismiss it as a trick of my tired mind. But then, something more unsettling happened. My car, which had been running smoothly, began to sputter, as if struggling for power. The headlights flickered, casting eerie shadows on the trees lining the road. I pulled over, heart pounding, and tried to restart the engine. It took a few attempts, but finally, the car rode back to life. I was about to pull back on the main road when I saw it. A small, shadowy figure, standing a few yards ahead, barely visible in the fog. I squinted, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. The figure seemed to be that of a young boy, but as I blinked, it vanished, leaving me staring at an empty road. A chill ran down my spine. Was this the Atco ghost? The boy hit by a car all those years ago? I didn't want to find out. I drove away as fast as I could, the eerie feeling lingering long after I had left Burnt Mill Road behind. Every shadow seemed to dance in my peripheral vision. Every sound made me jump. When I finally reached home, I was still trying to rationalize what I had seen and heard. Maybe it was just a trick of the night, or perhaps my own imagination, fueled by the legend. But deep down, I couldn't shake off the feeling that what I had experienced was beyond something normal explanation. I've driven down many roads since then, but I've never returned to Burnt Mill Road at night. Some things are better left unexplored. Some legends are better left untouched. The memory of that night still haunts me, a chilling reminder that some stories, no matter how unbelievable, might just have a grain of truth in them.